Welcome to our May meeting. Just want to acknowledge we have got 3 people online on Zoom at the moment. So Catherine Hubbard and Max Freethley are media and a person from public. Welcome Councillor Ellis, Golden Bay Deputy Chair Grant Knowles, and Molly, representative from the Youth Council. And welcome everyone in the gallery and our staff, councillors and board members. We'll start off with karakia, which will be on the screen if you want to join in. That is fine. Kia tau, mai te maramatanga, kia tau, mai te rangimaria, kia tau, mai te kaha, me te whai whakaro, tēnei kaupapa, hui e tā kia. Let's be grounded in clarity, let's be peaceful, strong and considerate for this purpose, bind together, and so it is. So we have got quite a chocker board meeting today. So I'm just going to pass through the board a couple of things. We're just going to shift. So after public forum, we have a presentation from Mr. Hughes. Then we also have Richard and Grant representing George Daly, who is the PM for the report on the Moutere Inlet margin land use, who can't be here today. So they're just going to take the report as read, and if you've got any questions. Then we're going to, straight after public forum, we'll do discretionary fund, then the presentation. Financial summary with Paul Egan, and then we will also do the special projects action list there, just in case we have any input from staff from that. Then we'll go back to the other bits, which is mainly just the special projects report and board report. So yeah, we can talk about that when we get into that. So first of all, have we got any declarations of interest from the board? Oh, any late items? Can I please have a mover and a seconder of our April minutes? Moved by Councillor Maru, seconded by Deputy Chair. Everyone in favour, please say aye. Anyone again? Okay, so that's carried. Okay, so public forum, we have got 4 speakers. The first is Mr. Hellier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, members of the board, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. The definition of a freeloader is someone who benefits from the generosity of others without contributing or giving back. At a future development strategy meeting, the planner told me that people living in tiny homes were freeloaders. When I said that tiny homes were self-contained, his response was that they used the roads. Well, what about their fuel tax? Doesn't that go on roads? The access to my property is via driver road, an unmaintained council road. Mr. Greenup and I have to maintain this road at our expense, yet the council and ratepayers can use that road whenever they like. So, who are the freeloaders? That's my question to the board to consider. An opinion piece in The Guardian, April the 16th, reply to Seaview Heights advertorial begs comment. The council's refusal to include the proposal into the FDS, Future Development Strategy, is based on the site's productive land use, cultural heritage, concerns raised by Ngā iwi and the potential significant cost to ratepayers of providing wastewater and services. So first of all, the productive land, it's got apples on it. I've picked a few apples in my time, and I can tell you that that is not good apple growing country. It is dangerous, especially when the ground's wet. Furthermore, the chattering planner said to me that all vacant land in Motueka is zoned for housing. So how does that work? How does that work? That land could be used for production of fruit and vegetables. So you can't have it both ways. Second, the cultural heritage thing. Now, I was here one day when the guy who was representing the subdividers said that he had to contact 8 iwi and only 1 responded. So why is that important? And the cost to ratepayers of providing water and sewage. I thought the development levy was for that. And also, when you buy the section, you pay for all that stuff to the developer. But what really got me was the last paragraph. And the last paragraph says, in conclusion, the Tasman District Council is committed to a collaborative and informed approach to planning. Well, why don't they collaborate with the developers? What is the problem there? And then they go on and they say, by engaging the community and addressing future challenges proactively, the council is shaping the distinctive future with a strategic and inclusive vision. Well, if they wanted to be inclusive, why didn't they include the developers of this piece of land? To my way of thinking, it's total, this article here is total hypocrisy. At the last board meeting, Councillor Walker asked the council's representative to the board to speak up as she couldn't hear him. He couldn't be heard in the public gallery either. His response was that he was used to speaking into a microphone. Well, if he can't be heard without a microphone, he's not fit for purpose. And I asked if he can't speak loud enough for us all to hear, he should be replaced with someone who can. And finally, could you, Madam Chairman, could you have the headings in a bigger printing, because a lot of people in the gallery can't read that. Thank you.
Now I'm just thinking, I noticed there's a lot of sunstripe there. Do you mind, sorry, Richard, and maybe that line there, we'll just pull them down a bit. And Wayne, you feel free to grab a chair, come over there. You all right? You like the sunshine? Nice, fair enough. Okay, so in Williams, yeah? No, in Williamson is actually unwell. He is, I spoke with him today. He is written a letter to the ministry and is going to hopefully get a response and share it with. Kevin Fury.
Madam Chair, councillors and ratepayers of Tasman. You've all probably received one of these in the mail. They never seem to not come. That's your rate notice. So we pay rates for services rendered, and I've been doing that for about 20 years, as we all have. The question I am about is that the council seems not to be able to manage its income flows and or expenditure reductions, stick to the plans that they had in this room about a year ago, where the 7% was going to be the proposed dart in the board for second year. Now it's 8.8%. Notwithstanding the fact that the council is trying hard to reduce costs. If it's a bloated bureaucracy, then maybe we have to get the fat chef a little thinner, a lot quicker. Because as a ratepayer, it seems to be that there seems to be a bit of out of controlness here. And when you start reducing the library hours, that's really pushing it. Because I love coming to this library. This is our Te Papa in South Island. Suck it up, North Island. And on the screen here, this site has earned $18,000 of income from solar, because I do the solar program on a number of sites in the council. So I question why the detail to which you have to go, notwithstanding that you want to reduce costs, you're doing the Richmond Library is going to be cut in terms of timing of lengths. Somewhere, maybe Saturdays are going to go as well, yet you want an increase in rates. So I'm going to flip it around. We actually need longer library hours, possibly on Sunday as well, and maybe Motueka can go through to 5 and 6 o'clock. So you're cutting services, but you want an increase in rates. It's got to a point where maybe the ratepayers, RB stands for the Reserve Bank, not the ratepayer bank. So for councils to come to ratepayers and quid pro quo think they can continually up the ante, it's getting to the point where it's getting on the nose, and maybe ratepayers need to form an association so we can keep somewhat in check. We don't maybe want to have a Tauranga council where there was a commissioner involved, but if it has to be, so be it. And if TDC can't manage its affairs, then let's join up with Nelson. I rest my case. Thank you.
Can you just clarify that the 18,000 from the solar? So is that? Can you just clarify that?
Oh yeah, this site has got a 0.97 gigawatt solar farm on it, and the net gain to the council since inception in March 2022 is just over $18,000. That's a net export gain after the building has, like right now we are on solar, so we're probably exporting anyway, but it's all solar gain, and that's net money to the council. As the council has on Richmond, it's positive gain. Brightwater treatment plant is positive, so is Tākaka. Tākaka is a good example. We're about to do the installation for Port Tarakoe, which will be a gain. So in as much as that goes into general revenue, when you're talking about our Motueka or my Motueka, don't mess with Motueka.
That's an hour. Thank you. Did anyone else have any? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Ross Loveridge is going to be speaking on the Motueka Aquatic Centre. So 10 minutes as you're representing the group.
Thank you to the community board and councillors and people here. This is a rather late appearance here. With the annual plan, but currently in the annual plan for the Motueka Aquatic Centre, $1 million has been brought forward from the long-term plan into next year. And this allows the process of preparing for the eventual build, construction, design and build of the pool. Until this $1 million was brought in, there's no funding in the council to allow the procurement process to go forward. So it's not that nothing's happening, it's just there's a bit of a hiatus until the 25th of June when the annual plan is signed off. So really, we've put a submission into the council, and coming along here as well is just to say we're not forgetting. We just don't want to be forgotten, and it's not as we wanted to show that we are actually appreciative of what the council is doing at different levels. So we've work is continuing. We're working with a project advisory group of council staff. The councillors are very supportive of the things we're doing. But it's a big project, and there's been this hiatus while we've been waiting for the money. Once that's there, we'll also be kicking off a revitalised fundraising campaign that everyone in Motueka will see. We'll be using every tool we can find to connect with the community, individual businesses, and really that's going to be building on the strength and support of the people in Motueka for the pool, and it will also build the strength of the community through the fundraising phase, and then having the pool facility in the future will certainly contribute to that as well. So very simple, just the community board will have a submission into the annual plan. We'd just like the Motueka Aquatic Centre to be, just show your appreciation that it is moving forward, and just to make sure that our appreciation of it is not forgotten. But it does seem to be a project that is now pretty well embedded in TDC, you know, with it being in the long-term plan, staff allocated to work on it, and it's going well. So, thank you.
How long have you been working on this project?
Is this the royal view, or so no? The project's obviously, you know, there's been since the 90s that people have been interested in it. This iteration really dates from the 2000 and early teens type of thing. I've only been involved in it 7 or 8 years type of thing, but you know,
Only 7 or 8 years.
yeah. But yeah, some people on our committee have been involved for much longer, and you know, the stamina and tenacity is something that will get us through.
Thank you very much on behalf of the board for the efforts that you guys are putting into driving this from the community side.
Yeah, so we've been pretty quiet in the last year, just because we've been waiting to get ducks lined up and the council moving forward. But you know, there is still activity around, you know, between movie nights and car boot sales and concerts and things like that. So the community is still actually really supportive in that. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ross.
All right, so I'm going to move on Hughes, board member Hughes. It's going to do a presentation, which is looping into the 8-week rule discussions that have been going on. And so you've got 10 minutes.
Firstly, before I start, I was hoping that the CEO would attend, but unfortunately it is not. So I have just a couple of questions, Mr. Ridd. I hope you can assist. This is before I start. So who is head of all things enforcement-wise at the Tasman District Council?
The group manager is Kim Drummond, and the CE ultimately is responsible.
So Mr. Kim Drummond and the CEO,
Yeah.
Leonie Ray. Who is in charge of governance?
So, sorry. No,
I was just asking a question before I.
yeah, I know, but
Okay,
maybe include it in your presentation,
All right.
and if you already know the answer.
it wasn't, it was for the benefit of the people on YouTube, because they have no idea of who are making the decisions with their lives, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, in February last year, the board made a resolution to council to amend a small part of a paragraph in the huge document that is the Tasman Regional Management Plan. This small paragraph comes under the definition of a vehicle. And a vehicle, if you live in it for a period of longer than 8 weeks, it becomes a building. Now, I have long since seen the craziness of all this, but we had asked the council to consider a small token amendment of putting a 10 in front of the 8. Just very simple, so we don't have to get into a big rigmarole. It would take the sting out of this enforcement. It will de-weaponize this discrete piece of legislation, in the Tasman District Council's own words. Now, as you're all now aware, Mr. Ritter's now confirmed that unfortunately nothing has formally progressed on this. So we have had 4 workshops over the last over a year. And as I said, I spoke out last month that nothing seems to have happened. So after I had confirmation that nothing has happened, I then made a request to governments to provide me with the pathway that we use when a board makes a recommendation to council and how it all progresses to the point of it's either adopted or it's declined, and for what reasons. Unfortunately, governance have not provided that information despite a number of attempts. In the beginning of this year, we asked council for another sticking plaster, but just an appeal to help these people that are facing victimisation because they're living in a caravan. We asked to triage the complaints. In other words, this is the Resource Management Act. It's about the effects on the environment. So if there are no real effects on the environment, what is the problem? And maybe, as I said, a triage, simple as that. We were told we don't have the right to ask this. They said that when I pushed about seeking the pathway, they said we don't have the delegations to even make this recommendation to council. Now, this undermines the integrity and the democracy that we have as a community board. That's what we are here for. We are here to be a voice of the community. We also have clear delegations, and in LGNZ, this is what I was to have to put on the wall, but we won't. We do have the rights to recommend something to council. And for the governance department of TDC to try and shut this down well over a year later is an attack on our democracy. If we are not allowed to be a voice for our community, what is the use of a community board? It finishes for us as a community board. That's it. If governments are going to decide that the only thing we can do is have a say on roading, footpaths. So moving on from that. The enforcement of the 8-week rule. Historically, this has been, as we know, a discrete piece of legislation that not many people are aware of. So council normally visit said person living in a caravan, get them talking, and somewhere in that conversation, how long have you been here comes up? Or, example, or a year, 2 years, whatever. And then a couple of days later or a week later, a letter comes back to them with by your own admission, you have admitted to living here. And then they show you the legislation that you have breached. Well, thanks to a lot of people in the community and the community board, this is no longer a secret. And so people are fighting back. So how do you enforce the 8-week rule? You have to know that they are living in something for longer than 8 weeks. So if you cannot get that information off of them, you have to do one of 2 things. You have to place surveillance on them, or you have to get a police search warrant, because council staff are not allowed to go into a dwelling. So if council are saying that's a dwelling, they can't go into it. But those are the 2 options. Of course, surveillance, I believe, although I've unfortunately once again been unable to get any answers from governance in relation to this matter, I have asked for the legislation that allows staff to place surveillance on people, and it has not been forthcoming. Okay, so we place surveillance on people. I believe that's a breach of our rights to privacy, amongst some other things. This does not appear to be a concern of the Tasman District Council. I have here many documents, all alluding to surveillance. However, Tasman District Council calls this observations. Now, I can understand police placing surveillance on a drug dealer, on some serious criminal activity. But for someone living in a caravan, I cannot find the reasons that we would do this sort of thing. Okay, so if surveillance cannot be done, and I've got a feeling that now even the governments are realizing that they can't do this sort of thing. So the next thing is, if the people aren't talking and you can't place surveillance on them, you have to use police force. Now, this has been done twice to both people that I've been assisting. And now I find it's going to be used for a third time for another person I have been assisting. So if I am aware of 3 instances just in my own small area that TDC are using police to simply see if someone is living in something they shouldn't be, imagine what will be happening in likes of Golden Bay, where there are huge amounts of people living in unconsented dwellings. There will be an exodus of people. We talk about staff. We're going to need dozens of staff if this carries on, because now the Tasman District Council have more teeth with their enforcement. So I asked the community board, what is the public interest in taking someone to court over someone living in a caravan? What is the importance to the community? Unfortunately, this question hasn't been answered either. Then we move on to the fixed to land. For it to become a building / structure, the definition does say fixed to land. For 6 years, council have refused to answer this question, including starting with me in 2019, I asked, and I was assured that I would get a legally robust decision. I was told they got it, but it wasn't supplied to me. And I presume that's because they didn't like the answer. However, we tried again last year at one of the workshops, and they claimed legal privilege. And I said, well, that's fine, but this was for me. This information, a legal opinion on fixed to land, was for me. No, actually, it wasn't for you. They come back at. So where do we go now? We have been misled, in my opinion. We were told that we would make a recommendation and it would go through the proper channels. It simply hasn't. It simply hasn't. So I asked the board in our discussions later on today, what are we going to do about it? Thank you.
Thank you. So as Nick alluded to, we'll leave any discussion till the board report. And I also notice I have not, so I was going to do discretionary fund first. So let's just move to that part, which we have, which is page 36. So we've got 2 parts to this. We've got family start. Is there representative, Kelsey? Family start. Rebecca, is Rebecca here? Rebecca from Family Start here? Okay, so Rebecca, and then also it's, the other part is around the Motueka Army Cadets unit, just wanting to use the excess funds. Well, I think, because it's already approved,
Yeah,
it's just whether the board,
I'd like to move that that's approved, yeah,
okay, so,
first aid, yeah.
okay, so for what one, sorry? For both?
That's,
The Army Cadets. Okay, so Deputy Chair is happy to approve the 0.4, which is the Motueka Army Cadets unit spend the remaining funds of $71.19, which was approved in February, towards the first aid training.
4 and 5.
4 and 5, so yeah. I'm happy to second that. We're doing it in two parts just because we haven't got Rebecca here at the moment. So moved by the deputy, seconded by the deputy chair. Anyone against? All in favour? Aye, head nods. Okay, so 4 and 5 is carried. Board, do you want to discuss the family start one? Anyone
Board member Knowles wants to give some wisdom, but
wisdom?
is it a project or is it operational funds? So Golden Bay navigated this somehow last week.
We had, through the chair, we had the, had an application from the same organisation and we did approve it. But might have to reword the application, the governance. Explain to us that it's an applying for operational and the discretionary fund isn't for operational.
No.
So we want to read.
Yeah. Is there a time frame that they didn't need to have this by? No, okay. Is the board happy to leave the slide till next month with any alterations? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I'm not just sitting here waving. Through Madam Chair, so will we give some correspondence back to them about what needs to meet our criteria? Because there's no point bringing it back the next month if we know we can't fund it. It's a waste of your time and theirs. I believe it's operational, but they still wanted to proceed with it.
So just,
And we're meant to be here to speak to it.
just through the chair, it'd be really helpful to see how Golden Bay navigated it in their resolution, because it's the same policy and stuff. They've navigated it. There's a workaround somewhere. If it's supported.
I would say it's under community benefit.
Yeah.
That's why it's called discretionary. Yeah.
To be fair, I'm lukewarm about it in this side of the budget. Just
So am I.
fun.
Yeah.
But
Well, if you want to.
through the chair, I feel like it may set a precedence because it clearly states that we don't fund operational costs, so I think we have to stick to that, or because we could get a lot of people applying for operational costs and then we have to use the discretion because the precedence has already been set. Or am I being mean?
I think you've got a good point through the chair.
Okay, leaving to lie, moved by the chair, second and
Change. What, so we, that's in line for further information?
yeah, so if they, so the same, because we had the same instance last time
Do you
So-
need some advice though on,
to the applicant.
do you
Ah.
need advice though to make a decision?
No, so we're going back to the applicant.
Yeah.
See if there's any move around, or, and if Golden Bay can share how they navigated that, it may, like if they're quite stuck on this is how we want to go. We can get advice from Golden Bay on how they navigated it, that might support the board's decision. Yeah, is that fair enough? Okay. Right, so on with that, can I have a seconder? Is that you putting your hand up? Councillor Della? Thank you. Everyone agrees? Anyone against? Okay, so that's carried. I'm just conscious, we've got some staff members that need to go as well. So we want to utilise their time. So if I haven't missed anything else, we're moving to 8 point. Oh, sorry, Have. Are we going to just speak quickly to the Motueka, like just as read, and if there's any questions, but it looks like it's something that might come back.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this report is a land use options report that is about the nurturing margins. It's a report that's been prepared over the last 12 to 18 months. It was discussed at a workshop of the community board last year, and it went to the council's operations committee, the last committee meeting, for discussion. It's a bit of an update. So I guess the purpose of this is just to highlight where we've got to. Just like to, just by way of background for people that don't know, it's about the area between Wharf Road and Old Wharf Road. And the Borough Council originally purchased this area. It's about 55 hectares, comprising mainly of inlet areas and margins, coastal margins. It was purchased from Wakatu Corporation in 1986, and the purpose of the acquisition was to provide greater management control over the inlet and its margins. So I guess the reason this report was prepared, investigated, was there were some perceived not conflicts, but different options for use of these margin areas, and staff wanted to, I guess, clarify some of the uses and improve also on some of the other areas. Look at some ideas for other uses along there. So, I guess summary: the report has recommended that the Motor Caravan Association land area that's leased will increase in size, approximately double the size. Also, that the community gardens continue to use the area that they use, and also look at some walking tracks and salt marsh restoration through sort of additional planting along the southern part of the site. So yes, that's all I'll just say for now. We're happy to take questions.
Yes.
I haven't got a question. So this with the council just recently, so I was waiting for the board to sort of agree in terms of concepts, but the picture on page 16 is basically the recommendations by picture. And the good part in terms of the conversations to date with the Motorhome Association is that they're happy to help invest in that replanting costs down that pathway. And also potentially looking at maybe a small canine park in between the two at their cost. That would be for the users of the park, but could be accessed by the public. But anything in that scope will be lease land back to the association, and they're also happy to help fund some. And I know I sent a message through Grant in terms of the third tenure of lease for the amount of money they're looking to put in. But obviously, if the levels rise and you have to retreat, that's going to be embedded in our lease agreement anyway. But certainly, from a council's perspective, I think it's a great option. And thank you for the report. But so I know we were sitting here, we couldn't do anything till we got this report. But
Yeah. What Member Hughes?
This report, was this done in-house or was this done through a independent person? So the project manager is George Daly, who couldn't be here today, so hence we're filling in, and it was prepared by a consultant, Paul MacArthur. The consultant, is this the one that cost $11,000?
You mean when
I asked the question of how much the report into, like there was always the asking of the how this came about was the interest in the New Zealand Motorhome Association, and so I understand they got a.
Yes.
that cost came to this committee because it was out of the fund that this committee approved.
So
So this was a report that this committee.
initially it was 60K was requested
Yeah,
and
we cut it back.
declined. So if it's 11K, that's the correct figure, then that's,
So they've spent $11,000 and come back with the same
option.
recommendation that was put to us in the beginning.
Yeah, so I'm assuming is there extra stuff that's gone into this?
Just through the chair, just to clarify, so it was through the Motueka Harbour Works and Coastal Reserve Fund. And I think from memory it was around $50,000. I could be wrong, but was budgeted. So yeah, I'm not sure what the final amount was. It was a lot less than that. Through the chair, I did put forward the idea of if you are going to have self-contained vehicles there, they may change, but perhaps it would be an idea to have other self-contained vehicles there that could live there.
Yeah, I know we discussed that, and as we can see, they've excluded
Try and
that.
find
as
it.
an
Did
option.
they come up
So if
with
you
that?
look at page 16, which is 10 at the top of the report, they have excluded, as in can't provide tiny houses under the TRMP. It's a building. So it's
Excellent.
not part of.
It's the TRMP again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess what do you want to do? You just want an endorsement of your
It was really
recommendations?
just an update, and but this is not. It's my understanding. It's not a report.
No.
It's just a plan for information.
Okay, thank you. Really appreciate it. It's a good report. Is there any, do you guys want to feed in if you've got?
So through the chair, I strongly urge the board to support it. There's been a lot of work in. There was a whole lot of other alternative. I think there was a museum at the back of a museum. There was grading extension. There was putting council commercial buildings. There was a whole lot of things that were in here to get here. And I guess at least it's answered that question.
Yeah.
Board member Hutt will be happy to know that this will be the finishing touch in Friendly Towns Motueka sign off for
Okay.
that sign, according to one of the board members. So I just think it's all when we got there.
Yeah.
And so, thank you to the board for supporting the process to get us there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Della.
Yeah, I just want a clarification really, because I was away when the council discussed this. I was away on holiday, and when I saw the maps here, I thought, oh, yep, we've been involved with the Motor Caravan Association, the three of us, having talks about their increased area.
Yeah.
It's for Motor Caravan Association members only. They're going to provide the money. They're going to hire it out to their members to come and stay. So that's pretty well precludes anything else. Simple as that. Nothing to do with DRMP. It's the fact that they're going to own it technically.
Yeah. I think the discussion back then was around was there the possibility of
Big area.
sectioning off an area for alternatives.
That's
Yeah.
that's the clarification. Yep.
Yeah. Anything else, Councillor Walker?
So today we've had it tabled just to bring the community board up to speed of what's been presented at full council, but I don't think there's a resolution for the community board to do anything with it other than
No.
just accept the report.
Yeah. That's. Yeah. But in fairness, we have discussed all of these points previously, so we have been part of the discussion, but I take your point. It's just coming back to inform us. So, yeah, do appreciate you both standing in and presenting that on behalf of George. I'm just going to switch out staff members and then I'll have you back up in a tick. Thank you. Okay, so Paul, we're going to move on to the financial summary, which is page 36, 8.2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So looking at the financial summary for this month, it was a quieter month expenditure wise. The only notable sort of items of expenditure being some expenditure on the eyesight signage and special projects, and some advertising around first responders in the Motueka Guardian. On a general note, I do note that we have spent more of an annual budget year to date, but there is sufficient reserve funds accumulated from prior years to cover that. The discretionary fund budget has not been fully spent yet. There is some additional money there. And special projects expenditure is higher than budget, but as I said before, is covered by unspent reserve funds from clients. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got a couple of questions too. So first of all, can I please just get clarification, and you've just mentioned it. Now, so we've had an overspend on special projects, which potentially has come from old projects that haven't been finished until this financial year. And they've come out of the reserves. Does council have to, like, if the board wanted to get anything, we'd have to go back to council to, is it because it's already tagged that you can just take the money out of the reserves? Or does it have to go through a process in council to make sure that that's captured again? Because it's in reserves. Sorry, Paul, I would have given you heads up, but.
Oh, so this is the jam jar.
Right, okay.
Just to get my head around this part here to move into the next part.
In relation to the community board's delegations, I would probably have to check with the CFO on that too.
So we have to go back through council if we want to access the jam jar, the reserves. But I'm just wondering how it works when we've done an overspend because of old projects or whatever. Does the same process happen through staff using that money, or is there a?
There are a couple of processes, and the councillors who have been around the council scene much longer than I have, might have some input as well. At the last monthly council meeting, there was a paper put forward to formalise the approval of some budget lines in the infrastructure area where the maintenance costs had gone over budget for various reasons, and councillors had sought information on that and then approved that. So formally approving that overspend by council could be one way forward, and perhaps noting it and making a recommendation in the activity balances report at the end of the year. But this is straying into an area where process-wise, I feel uncomfortable giving advice on because
And look, I really appreciate the time that you gave us on Friday in the workshop to get our head around different bits and pieces. Councillor Walker, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you through your chair. And I raised this at last month's meeting. When I look at our special projects, I don't know if I'm just not seeing it because, you know, maybe I'm a little blind. But the flag poles that we erected at Rewalker, ready for Anzac Day, I don't know where, I mean, they're clearly there. I was there, the flags were raised, but I don't see where it's reported. Am I missing that? Is this not the report that would show on?
sometimes there is a cut-off between, we have accounting cut-offs, and some of those costs will be sitting in other cost centres, general ledgers, and they haven't been broken out of that and communicated through and transferred over yet. So I'll make a note of that to try and to identify.
Because that will affect that bottom line figure again.
Yes. So through the chair, that will apply for the wharf, unless I need notices as well. The wharf, the 10,000 for the wharf. Yeah, so that will need to come out of there as well then.
Okay, let me make a note of that. And with Councillor Murdo.
So through the chair, so the council has approved an overspend and an additional allocation to this budget about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, because this will be on the annual plan budget, isn't it? So these figures would have changed, but you've already requested some additional funds that we released.
That's been written into the annual plan.
Was it not for this year?
No. There may have been.
I thought it was some additional stuff for the projects you were doing.
There was no. What went through council, which didn't actually need to go through council,
Was a change over.
was a change from
Interchange.
one item to the other, which was actually under the same umbrella anyway. But it was just a formality thing. So, yeah, but we were going to do them both. but one was out of that pocket, and then that's when it said to
So
come.
then just through the chair, so the complication for this will be, Paul, going forward will be the carryovers, the unspent special projects into next year, otherwise you're going to balloon that budget and just have it in reserve.
Well, the interesting thing now, and you'll see further in the report, Kelsey's done a lot of work on trying to break that down for us.
Yeah.
And Paul has as well, and you've probably got more to add to that since then. But our concern is we've had this pool thinking we've had this massive pool sitting there and we want to access it so that we're getting community projects done. The reality of it, a lot of that is already tagged to projects that aren't reflected in this.
Yeah.
So the information that I sent you guys earlier, where we're looking at proposing in our submission around accessing that needs to be relooked at, because the figure we're working off is $120,000, where in fact it may be more like $60,000 left in our reserves jam jar. So I don't know if you've got another figure, Paul.
Don't
No,
have another
that's
figure,
okay.
but as I said at the workshop the other day, just if we can capture that picture via,
Yeah.
we can perhaps process through the carry forwards process. So we make sure that the spend budget reflects the accumulated funds and the commitments via.
That's right. Yeah. So that's what we're really after in order to complete our submission. Was there any other questions for Paul?
So, yes, my question is, the discretionary funds. So if I'm reading it right, we've got 13,500 left. Remaining balance?
No.
No,
Oh,
discretionary.
well,
funds.
some of that's in reserves. Is that,
So we've got available funds 20 and we've used 6.9, so that leaves 13,000.
So 13,000 is in the reserve.
yeah,
So if that doesn't get spent before June,
that reserve.
it will stay in reserves, or my question is, because we get another
Some
6,000 or whatever, yeah, can we transfer that money to a special project?
Sorry, policy. That's the problem with that shifting budget.
Is it
It
possible?
would have to be within the terms of the policy here, which I'm not familiar enough to answer that question.
So how do we get an answer for that? Because that would be quite handy.
It would. But again, we need to make sure that those are all ticked off and done as well, which I assume, because we did do a big tidy up last year. So I assume that's all up to date. So we'll have to have a look at those policies. Get
So
some
can we
stuff.
have an action to look at how we go about using that remaining discretionary funds to use? Yeah.
If it can be crossed over, because then that would help the plan.
You.
Always
Always up to the money.
And just as a general fruit here, sorry.
Yeah.
As a general note, in the discretionary fund, there is a budget of, I think nearly, what's that? 10,500 roughly, and roughly 7,000 has been spent, so no more actions have been spent. It's a carryover of that spent budget.
Okay. Yeah, because when I was going through it earlier, so in our actual April year to date, in our budget year to date, we're at 24K over in our special projects. And also over in our member training stuff. So it's just a matter of us getting those heads up of balancing it. And conscious, I know you need to keep going on. No, I think that's, we can catch up on those finer details anyway, and once we've worked out that policy stuff, how it can be done.
Yeah.
Was there any other questions from the board for Paul? No. So, thank you. Thank you, Paul.
No, I've got it. See that?
You've got to make your screen bigger.
Ah.
Now I can see. Now, so we've got special projects report. 8.3, but oh yeah, sorry. I'll move the financials.
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, second, but yes,
We move the,
we just said, so I've just moved. Just second
I
in.
can hardly hear you over here.
Sorry, I need a microphone.
Yeah.
All in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? You're against or you're for?
No, I,
Okay. Yep, carried.
not often we got a decent jam jar. I mean,
Okay, so now, what did we decide about this next special projects and the special project? I think we need to. And I think we need to maybe give the board a chance to read through them. So let's just jump into the special projects action. Okay, so page 38. 8.3 special projects. So just a quick update on our actions list. So Dix Reserve. We have a note here. Last invoice for Dix Reserve hit the ledger in January. Confirmation required if this project is now complete. Well, Grant, do you know? Tony usually gives us. Oh, yeah.
I think it's just the bike.
Okay, but there is actually a bike stand there. But not the one that he was gunning for. Okay, so the wooden bike stand still to install, which means there's probably another cost, or is it like the installation cost?
The funds have been spent, that was approved and allocated, so.
Okay, so it's in your department? Councillor Walker?
Yeah, through you, Chair, and sorry, Grant, not to be disrespectful, but I have been in dialogue with Tony Strange. Paul Morrison, who is our playground designer, is still working on the options for the drumsticks to make that musical equipment usable.
Yeah.
As opposed to looking pretty. And he has been in dialogue with Dan Roberts regarding the bike rack. And they did a site location visit the other day to confirm where it's going to be placed, so it's still a work in progress. So in my opinion, this needs to stay on here because it is not complete.
Yeah, so the cost may have moved out, but the project is not finished. And just to add to that, Councillor, Deputy Chair and I were over there the other day. So we just need a feedback to Tony Grant around the fractures in the concrete, which were there when we first opened. And I can't remember what the update, I don't know if anything's come around the councillors around that. It's, I mean, it's superficial, but it could,
before we even open.
yeah, it could become quite dire because it is where the water fountain is. It sort of meets in the middle. So yeah, so that's just an action. Tony gets that feedback. Okay. All right. So we're leaving Dix Reserve on. Thank you for now. Oops. Ted Reid reserves. So this is the testing that's been going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
So through the chair, the Ted Reid's reserve is landfill site, closed landfill site, and the cap on the landfill is not as thick as was expected. So it's in places it's only 300 mils in depth. In other areas it's 500 mils. So the closed landfill team did have done some sent a crew out and they've done some testing in certain spaces around the reserve and found out where the cap is too thin, where it is of a depth that we can actually use to put some playground equipment in. So
right in the middle of the field.
Right in the middle of the field. So we'll try again. We might just need to talk to one of the neighbours just to make sure that our closest neighbours are happy with the new location.
So is it, you're joking, that's not going in the middle of the field?
Not quite in the middle, but it's actually
Far corner, was it?
sort of further over, yeah, towards the estuary,
Yeah.
and on the edge. So it wouldn't actually impact on how people use the field or
Yeah.
sit straight in the middle.
Okay, yeah,
I saw people doing some testing, yeah.
What is the, so is 500 mil the optimum?
Yes, so 500 mils depth for a clean fill would be, it's good. Underneath that, we've got a mixture of materials, so they wouldn't have done a lot of testing. Visual inspection showed some asbestos, steel, glass, and other debris. So it was enough to see that it is contaminated. We need to put the play equipment elsewhere.
In the same site.
Or on the same side, on the same.
So I'm not sure if I can remember the outcome of this, but it cost about 6,000 to do what we've done so far.
Yeah.
So, but that, we don't pay for that out of our 10,000 special projects. Is opening up for that one. So what do we think the time frame is?
I think Lynn was talking to the neighbours, so there would be no delay once we've got that communications. I don't think there'll be an issue starting again.
Thank you, through Chair. So I may have heard these conversations previously with other sites that have ended up being a massive blowout on budgets. So I get that the 6K doesn't come from us around here, but it comes from me as a ratepayer and everybody else here, for that to be noted. So you're saying that potentially there is sites on Ted Reid Reserve done on the tests currently. Do we know that we've mitigated any risk of, like, we've done a test here and then 200 metres here? We could easily uncover something else.
Yeah, so through the church, so I believe the testing is done on a grid pattern, so they can, and quite regular spacing, so they'll have recorded and documented where they've done test sites, and I think it was quite consistent and quite a lot, but we've got that information which we can provide. So we're very confident where the cap is thick enough to put the play equipment. And one other option would be to lift the equipment slightly as well. So instead of removing material to put the full surface in, we could actually build that up and so to mitigate any risks might happen.
So we've spent the 6K, I hear what you're saying, but potentially this project is much bigger than what we perceived if we're going to do a build up. Because I've watched kids on swings around here and they're quite acrobatic, and often they will flip themselves out of intentionally to land. So I'd like to hope that the radius is big enough that they don't land beyond the tested site that supposedly is safe.
Yeah, so.
But what budget are we now working with? Are you coming back to the community board as to what this looks like moving forward?
We can do, well, I presume, just.
This is a council with no money that we're going out. We've heard public forum speaker today.
Yeah.
I am a little bit uncomfortable that we're now changing the scope, and we as a community board, this is one of the community board special projects, and we're not going to be running in the same lane. This is how we get these blowouts real easy. I just feel a little uncomfortable that the ball game's changed.
Through the chair, the funding does come through our reserve fund contributions, which comes from development. So it's a slightly different bucket and not our operational budgets where we're struggling to. And then the other question you had was about the fall zone of the play equipment. So each piece of equipment comes with a recommended fall zone. So, and that would take into account children who are quite acrobatic.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just through the chair, in terms of the budget, once we know exactly where this can be relocated to, we can bring a report back about any change in costs. But something that was out of our control, and it was a closed consented landfill, and the debts obviously varied somewhat.
This won't be here. Potentially it was. Who knows? These are the risks.
Can't see.
No. Any other questions on that one? Okay, so you'll talk to neighbours, even if you could send us a map of where the location of that is. I guess our initial thought was it was going to be by the other playground equipment, which would have been ideal, so. Okay, moving on to number 12, Memorial Park. So that the last update was they'll be installed in 2 weeks. We're in week 3, May. So do we? So okay. So have we got a estimated time on that one?
I'd need to check with Tony Strange.
Okay. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so Tony's text said that he thought they were going in and he expect them in to be now. So any day now.
Next week. Okay. Turning the page, number 15. So deputy.
So it's looking like, well, we're going to have 15,000 back in the budget because NZTA Roading approved the site, 2 meetings on site, and then discussions on the phone, but it has been declined by NZTA Environmental Planning Department because it is it's more than a 50 km/h. So even though the roading safety people approved it, the environmental planning won't touch it unless it's in a 50 km, which puts it in an impossible place for it to have any meaning coming into Motueka. So really disappointing. Sort of been a start, stop. So I spoke to the stonemason. It's like, hold fire, because he was just about to start. So really, really disappointed, especially because of the time spent on it with the roading. And they even said, we don't need traffic management. It's 8 meters off the road, but no.
So we can confirm that that project will now be taken off and the $15,000 back into budget. You want to say something?
It looks like you want to say something. No.
Shaking.
It's the way the world works, unfortunately, these days.
It does indeed.
It's a new world.
It is.
Yes, Councillor Walker.
Sorry, but through you, Chair. So I acknowledge that Deputy Chair has put a lot of effort in, going backwards and forwards, and the staff have obviously been involved. So there's a cost for part of it to get to where we are today, where we're going, stop, cease, project finished, 15K comes back. But surely there are actual costs somewhere to get to where you've got to.
Well, I don't think. Well, I don't. Yeah, I was just going to say. I don't think the staff hasn't been involved. It's purely in my own time.
So the takeout is, how do we not repeat this if the staff weren't involved? So I thought all these projects go to staff, the staff go, yep, we can do X, Y, and Z, and this is the costs. So how do we get to here?
Well, I think through the chair, it's because it's NZTA, because it's a state highway. So it's a whole different ball game.
But the staff signed off to say this is a special project community board had delegation to go and do.
Because it was NZTA jurisdiction. So it's slightly different in the sense of going through the different departments.
So everybody that I've liaised with for this project has all been NZTA.
That's the difference with that.
Andy High, Phil Hamblin, Troy Chapman.
So effectively, deputy chair's 50 cents an hour
Has been wasted.
25 now.
Well, for our future, through you chair projects, we won't be looking at anything that sits on land that's not council's. Otherwise, we go through the same.
Not necessarily, because those other
Exercise
two
again.
signs are both, oh, that one's not, but that one is, isn't it? That's,
So how did one get through? and
because it's
not this
after
one?
50K.
Because it's after
X to under.
Yeah, it's just before the 100K zone.
Here's an option, let's lower the speed on the Motueka. It's crazy because
It is crazy.
it's the only
I don't know if
80K
anyone
that
does
it's
go
got
80.
50.
Yeah.
Crazy speed on it.
Well,
Yeah.
the comment through the chair, the comment from the stonemason was, he said, I know my work is beautiful, but I didn't realise it was as beautiful to make people crash at the sight of it. Apparently so.
Yes, Councillor Dallin.
Rob Service. Was Rob Service involved with this project or not?
No, Andy High, Phil Hamblin and Troy Chapman.
Right.
And it
Should
was-
we gone
and it was-
there?
And it was Jack McClintock
No.
or something that, not Rob. I've never.
Right, let's move on. 50K back in the bank.
Who's the area man?
15.
15 would be great. 15 would be 15.
Try deputy chair,
50K.
Grey here, but right.
worth a try.
Worth a try.
Okay, moving on. So water baths, so plantings will be done next month, by the end of the month. We've lost some numbers on these. Motueka key contribution, historical wolf restoration.
Oh, yeah, they just wanted to highlight that the archaeology authority has all been approved and we don't need resource consent.
Yes.
Is that a definite?
Have we checked with the environmental planning officer?
Okay.
Supposed to be definite, yeah.
Different department pop up here,
True,
just like NTA.
true.
At this stage.
Skip.
no reason.
Speak can't lie.
Get on with it.
Okay, all right. So we'll leave that at that. And the last one is the Motueka Cemetery. So still waiting for metal gates. Yeah. And that's the cost. Is that the cost after the metal gates left? Is that the gate?
That'd be the gate cost.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
I'll just let him say.
That's all right.
Trying to keep them in or are we trying to keep
It's
them
just
out? Yeah.
making it look nicer. Now you'll see
DIY.
on page 43 and carries on to 44, that breakdown of where we're at. So projects completed and the financial summary, which indicates to me, which we just need clarification from Paul, that in fact, not 140 in our reserves due to those tagged amounts, but 62. So, which potentially indicates 85,000 was tagged before we even. So we just need to get clarity from Paul around that because between doing the workshop and this, so we just need that, otherwise it sort of wipes our special project, our annual plan submission. You were going to say something, councillor Murray.
So you said the figure of $80,000.
Oh, so if we go back to our financials.
Is it, so through, so the special projects have been currently getting funded through accumulated reserves, haven't they? They haven't been rated anymore. So remember we had a discussion, there used to be a rate for special projects and a rate for the Motueka Community Board.
Yes.
So they've dropped back and the rates reduced from what it was to what it is now. So yes, you're funding the annual allocation out of your reserves. That's why it's dropping. So you're still having the same, but instead of having that reserve sitting there as reserve, you're funding the current special projects through your reserve. It's not being rated anymore.
So hold on.
So what there used to be a Motueka Community Board rate for the community board.
Yeah,
Then there used to be an extra $12, $14 for special projects.
yeah,
That all got merged, but
into one
times got tough and the rate reduced
to 15.
because the special project funds were coming out of the reserves. That's how
So
it's been
they've
shrinking.
always been coming out of the reserves. That's what you're trying to
Well,
say. That's that change.
2.5, 3 years. Yep.
Councillor
So that's why it's coming, because the other sheet that you had there didn't make sense to me because you deducted, whoever did it deducted 65 twice. So there was 198,388 minus 65,168 that has hit the ledger this year.
Hmm.
And then you've got a figure, then you've taken it off again. Which,
That's 5, 500.
not the 198,338.
Yeah, that 135 is taken off that.
Passes.
That was not put in twice.
So what's the total remaining fund? That's taken the 65,168 off again. Anyway, but I think that's where it's come on. That's where it's covers that I think we've been funding special projects through reserves rather than drawing down rate from. So Mr. Ogilvie would come and say about increasing the rate to get more projects. The rate's gone. So it was taken off to reduce rate.
It's $24 now, it's
15 something.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, we need to probably have a look at that. Because our intention was to continue funding without knowing that we were funding from the reserves on that 3 year.
It makes sense that pennies drop. Which is, in the
So-
short term, not a bad thing because it was 200,000
Yeah,
started. But going forward, it's an awareness that you can't keep funding.
so we must have approved that back at the beginning.
I think it was probably done at council in a long term thing because Board Member Noel said he can't remember the board having a conversation about it either.
No,
Same things happened over there.
it just happened. It just happened.
I think Mr. Drummond came in.
Oh,
I think there was some,
we didn't get told.
a workshop. I think that might have been the workshop at Memorial Hall. Way back,
Oh,
but it was high level numbers,
we didn't know the detail.
the outcome.
Right. I mean, it makes sense. And our whole point was we wanted that money used. We
Used, yeah.
Sitting there
Yeah,
accumulating too much.
So in your submission probably needs to be a plan because it's only going to last 1 more year.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
Plan.
Through the chair, I think we made that arrangement, our board, annual board, that it was going to be funded for this year and next year, and then they'll relook at it again. The special projects.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for, we won't. So thanks for,
We'll just get on it, try and find out.
please.
Okay.
Yeah, just so we've got that figure.
Yeah.
I sort of need it like as soon as you can because we need to get this out.
yeah.
Okay, that clarifies. Have you got a question, Councillor Walker? No?
Sorry, poker face, no.
Okay, now we will, is this a separate report? Okay, did we pass that? Can I have a mover and a seconder of that report? Okay, so I keep calling you councillor. Sorry, Deputy Chair Hart has moved. Can I please have a seconder? A councillor, because I keep saying councillor. Councillor Murray? All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone again? Okay. 8.3 carried. Moving on to 8.4. Now, just thinking out loud, because we haven't, like we've already just, this has all just been pulled together, and thank you, Deputy Chair, for running this again, this process, the special projects process. This is basically the input from community. I don't know if you've got an actual amount of people that voted. Do we know? I didn't see it. Huh?
It's no numbers, it's
Well, we've got the graph.
It's got some pretty colours on it.
It'd just be good to know like how many, like numbers. I don't know if that bottom number. Yeah, I know, but I don't know if that's there because there's two. There's a 17, there's an 8. Anyway, it'd be good to know what contribution from the community. Yeah.
Oh, maybe we can put that as an action rather than asking Ali. Yeah.
Just and obviously those figures are tentative and it still needs to go through the process to staff to complete the templates. So there's a couple of options. One, we can go through this now and highlight what is calling out, or you take the month and we revisit this in June. Yeah.
So, I replied to an email from the governance team about an AED that's situated outside
Oh,
the
yeah.
police station.
Yeah.
And the ongoing cost when that comes around
Oh,
for pads
good.
and batteries is currently funded by the board.
Oh.
So as you go forward, you might just want to have the same discussion around if you put an AED at the saltwater bars, who's going to fund the servicing battery and the pads when they're
Yeah.
replaced, just so you've got it entwined, so then that can come out of an expense.
Council did raise that. Do you know how much we're paying for the police? 'Cause I don't think.
Motueka Regional Ambulance do it, so Debbie and Danny.
Oh, yeah.
Just, so it's then they supply
So I
the
see.
lower price replacement battery and pad ones, so the equipment's good.
Okay,
But I think Kels may even have it, so.
okay, cool.
Is that through your discretionary fund?
Oh, it's just always just been through a.
Actual, so
expense.
going through discretion fund. How much do this? Well, if it's under seven.
It's needed. To be fair, Madam Chair, the budgeting and accounting has got a lot more complicated from this year. It's just like if we pay this and somewhere it used to get done.
I hear you, board member.
Everyone's forgetting. These machines, they're serious machines.
Oh,
I've
AEDs.
done a tell, I can save people.
Have you used one?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it didn't work, it died.
Oh, God.
But, anyway, no, on a doll.
Okay.
You think they'd let me loose with a real person? But it's serious stuff. And for an everyday person, I think it's a big ask. We go and put more of these in the town, you're gonna have people going, shit, what do I do here? And they'll end up.
To be fair through the chair, as you can't kill somebody with it. It won't shock.
We probably need to do another one, but we did have a training session just pre-COVID through Love Motueka, and we put on a free training session with Debbie and Danny. And there was about 20 people that attended to learn how to use the machines, because that came up. There was all these machines and everyone was a bit nervous, so we probably should do another one of those training sessions.
Okay, board member Hughes agrees that we can leave it till June. How's the rest of the board feeling? We have to move it by June at the June meeting. I just want to make sure you've got enough time to get through. It's like I've started going through the maps and working out how long these paths and that would be, and then we have to get some costings for the estimates.
So in order so that we've got accurate information for June, we get accurate costings, which I can liaise with, work with staff. And then at the same time, staff can look and see what's in scope and what's not.
Yeah.
So that in June, we can then vote on it and we know.
Because the discussion was that to save staff time, that the board would get everything. And then you go, yes, feeling these projects would be suitable in relation to what community have voted against. And then they just have to focus on smaller amount. Rather than staff having to do a template and costings against every single one, because there's quite a few.
In June, after talking to staff with
First eliminating what's out of scope.
Yeah, and pricing.
And the other thing that was raised is if there's anything that's already potentially going to be happening that might fall in that, and we can do a partnership project like decks and stuff, so that we're just doing a contribution. Is the board happy with that? Yes, councillor Walter?
Point of clarification through you, Chair. So the
Yeah.
figures that are in this report that we're looking at tonight.
Yeah.
Where did those estimates from whom?
Estimates from our process coordinator
So
from other projects.
yeah, from other projects that we've done, and the ones that are the footpaths, which are quite a big distance, we've just capped at 10,000. Until we talk to TDC, because they might already be doing that path. We need to talk to Jamie McPherson and Brian McManus and people like that.
So with the, so the estimates, so for example, giving you an example. Which one should I?
Well, like
hang
the-
on? Basically, yeah, so the footpath ones, here's my example, a footpath. So we put an estimate of 10K. So in that 10K, does that cover like traffic management? Or is that something that we expecting Tasman District Council's roading team to put forward? Because I don't think you're going to get any footpath anywhere. Personally, this is my opinion, for 10K. I think that that would be ridiculous to even start that journey with 10K unless it's its tiniest path and there's no traffic management. So how much time do you put in and staff put in for something that at the most we can give a special project is 10K?
Well, it's contribution.
It's a contribution, but we might, I mean, we could, if budget allowed, do more, and like the welcome sign was going to be 15,000.
And like Rat Street.
But the Rat Street, that came, we budgeted for 10 and it came in at 7.
But we piggybacked off another substantial piece.
That's what we mean. So there might be other projects going on. So we need to talk to, we might be looking at extending or filling in where not the skate park, Staple Street, you know, where one of the projects was to seal it rather than having it as gravel. But if we talk to Jamie or, right, they might say, oh no, we're going to do that in 2 years' time.
I hear what you're saying. I just have concerns about we've not gone out to.
But I think
something that's not a realistic figure.
I think historically, correct me if I'm wrong, but for footpaths, we've always just capped it at 10.
So through the chair, yes. And the fund was set up to leverage Jamie's budget. So on the matrix, if it wasn't high enough, the fund was set there to leverage that, to get that brought forward for council to match, put some money in. So it was used as leverage funds to get something that was low on the matrix funded. Yeah. So that was the original intent. That's why it was always for pass. So, but you know, I don't know what state Jamie's budget's in.
No.
But
There's several of
Send
them.
us metrics. Send you a spreadsheet through, let you know.
Actually, it used to come here, didn't it? That matrix,
Yeah.
that matrix that used to come here.
About 40 projects on it, I think, that are right throughout the whole district.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, it was the one at Brooklyn.
Yes.
So the school there was.
And the same with Mr. Rebin's budget. It's some leverage funding on a project where you might be going where.
So it's just exploring it with Jamie, going on what the community have asked for.
So you need to get the metrics to go, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no,
That's right.
straight away.
Yeah. So we'll get that ready
This is
for
not, I'm
June.
going to get nowhere near it.
No, no, and that's the thing, and that cancels it out.
And so that list, so through that list exists clear. So just ask Jamie for the footpath matrix.
Okay, so is the board happy to vote on this in June, once you get a little bit more condensed list?
And Richard might have a project that if you give him 5,000, you might bump it a week away. Who knows?
Well, you let us know.
$45 per linear meter for a gravel track with no traffic management, 8 meters wide.
But you've seen that, actually has that as your scale to work from.
So the other figures, so it's only really like the footpath ones, it's just 10,000 as a like say a contribution. The other prices are pretty damn accurate. Judging by what we've done previous projects.
Is everybody happy with 0.1, 2, and 3 in particular highlighted on the to override what is in the report? So the board's delegating authority to deputy chair to liaise with staff, scope feasibility and report back.
Yep. on that.
Okay, so moved by board member Hughes.
50 cents an hour, it's a bargain.
Yes, councillor Ellis.
just a quick thought. I see that Ted Reed Reserve is on that list with barbecue and shaded picnic area. Is it a good time to have a look if there's actually areas, considering the problems that are there, to see if it's actually doable? Because you could look into it further and actually find that there's no suitable spot. So
Yeah. I mean,
it's just a thought to bear
area
into
there.
mind.
It's just, yes, that's it.
Yeah, you probably could do it.
I'll second. Yeah, good point, councillor Ellis. So moved by board member Hugh, second by the chair. All those in favour, please say aye. Anyone again? Okay. Okay, 8.5, just check if there's anything in here. I think, the only thing will probably be in the actions part around, but we can talk. Okay. All right.
Seen this yet?
Okay, right, just an encouragement to community to input feedback to the annual plan. Number 5, I don't know if anyone has gone through or passed Paper Plus to see the campaign. But basically, this is what's gone out alongside some quite powerful posters, images, words from the homeless. I actually can't remember what the name of the report, but it was run through the mailroom, plus a couple of positive ones around empowering the individual and places of help for people, which the feedback has been a lot of people have been taking note, taking photos, jotting things down. I've had a couple of calls of people really wanting to support, a couple of very sad calls around situations that are happening locally. But all in all, the feedback has been really positive. So well worth doing. Yeah. So just thanks to the board for your support in that part of the initiative. Yes, councillor.
Yeah, thank you. Through chair, so I spent some time at Paper Plus this afternoon.
Oh, cool.
And had some really good dialogue with the staff in there. So yes, there has been an uptake on people taking contact numbers, but there has been no body walking in brave enough to put anything in the box.
Yeah.
I think that exposes people to many different things when you've got to walk through the shop up to a counter to slot something in a box where you've got anybody and everybody looking at you. And it started with a big hiss and roar, and there was lots of action, but it's kind of died off a little bit now. So wondering, I'm not too sure how long we said we're gonna.
It's just for the month.
Yeah.
So
whether we rearrange something so there's some
posters.
eye candy that draws them back
Yeah.
in, and the big poster by the Dex Reserve entranceway.
Yeah.
She's relocated that today because it continuously fell off.
Yeah.
So, but I just saw on the feedback that they've given, which is pretty cool, that you just need to change something to
Yes.
catch the attention of the foot traffic.
We have got another
To spark
poster
up a bit more interest.
that was meant to go up in the library.
Yep.
But there's no boards to put it on. So we might take that poster, put it back out there. Now, Councillor Walker's talking about boxes we've got located at Community House, the library and Paper Plus with forms that is, if there's something you can do to help somebody or if there's help you need. So it's on one form, so to try and discreetly you could be offering. But yeah, totally take your point, which is why we
And
sort
that's
of.
why we put our cards there, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's, yeah, there's been some moving input, but also some good connections that will help for the broader, so some youth stuff as well that's come out of it, which I'll update the working group and we can catch back up. But yeah, I was just thinking today about we need to freshen it up because I've driven past heaps. Yeah. Okay, so that's that part. Items from the board. Okay, so the Freedom Campaign. We've done a workshop on that. I don't know if there's any feedback on where things are at with that. It's just the by law?
Yeah, we start going through the process now.
Okay.
I think I alluded to the fact it will be coming
Yeah,
out sort of, what are we now, June, July, probably about August,
Okay,
for consultation around that time. I'll let you know anyway when it opens.
yeah. Yeah,
I've kept your feedback, Deputy Chair, for pass that on to the team. Yep. Yeah.
and then just in relation to, board member Hugh's presentation, so 6.2, we have got a workshop scheduled for the 30th. I don't know if that's in diaries, you know. But we've only just had that time confirmed. I'll double check. I might have to put it in the diary. It is the morning, 9 a.m, pretty sure. I'll double check and I'll put it in the diary. If his PA hasn't. So AP workshop. And then after that, we will add that visit to business. 6.3.
6.2, unfortunately, I don't feel that there's going to be anything positive come out of that workshop. We haven't seen any change to alleviate the issues, and I don't, unless there is an intention from council to say, hey, how can we help this situation? But anyway, let's move on.
That could exactly be the point of our discussion.
Yeah, let's hope.
But that does relate into your presentation. So 6.2, 6.3. So our opportunity will be that workshop to have those frank discussions.
As I said, the questions have already been put to council and they're just not answering. I see there's an ad in the paper for a governance manager. I might apply myself. I mean, I can answer questions. Doesn't take much. Anyway, let's move on to, sorry, 6.3.
Okay, so just a note about the barriers, but it looks like they have completed that, but the 70k zone is still up. So hopefully that's just a part of the process. Yes.
6.3, the 8-week rule.
Well, that's what I was just talking about.
Oh, sorry.
That's why I said I built in your presentation that 6.2 and 6.3, because the indication is that council are waiting for central government.
No. So I need to clarify here. You're waiting, TDC are waiting for clarification from the government on making building granny flats easier. What has a caravan got to do with granny flats? It never has. Well, that's different. I mean, have a look at everyone's read. You disagree?
I do actually, because council actually put their submission through and asked the government to include tiny homes.
Yes, sir.
The granny flat. Now, you just put something out the other day, an email quoting a blue line to, so I clicked on it and it goes to some other council that's asked the government exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
so we're not the only council in the room that's asked for the government to clarify tiny homes when they do the granny flats.
But if you look at the granny flats, it's not saying anything about caravans. Plus, it's talking about new builds.
It's all about tiny homes, that we want tiny homes included. That's what we've asked to happen.
That's what they want, yes, because they've also asked the government over confusion, okay? So this is what I was leading up to here. Here we have confusion over this. Here we have TDC not able to answer questions in relation to this, yet they're prepared to take people to court over it still. Why can't we just hang on a bit until we get these wonderful discussions back from central government? I mean, bear in mind, in 2020, council did get a fixed to land opinion, but they're keeping it hidden from us. Why is that under? Why aren't they going, here, look, I've got a fixed to land legal opinion. Here's what it is. They keep it hidden and claiming legal privilege. There's only one reason why that's being held elected members, is because it doesn't help their case. Now,
okay, so hold on, Board Member Hughes. So, I mean, valid point, council have included that and we're a part of that workshop discussion around encouraging central government to include the tiny home. I know there's a whole lot of other layers involved with that, but is it worth the discussion here, or is it worth it on the 30th?
No, we need to address this right now. The issue here today is the fact that we put in a resolution on the 8-week rule. It has not been dealt with. And over a year later, governance are now telling us, oh, you didn't. Now, I've sent all the emails to you. If you've read the emails, you'll see. And there's even that I've sent the email to Leith and the community board showing the minutes of the meeting, the big meeting, the council meeting. Nowhere did they say at the time, actually, hang on a moment, let's put a pause on this. You can't do this, community board. You don't have any rights. It was silent. No, I've provided, this is why I wanted to let you off the hook. I wanted to put up the LGNZ release on what we can and can't do. You've all got the emails. We can do this. We can make a recommendation.
Yeah, which we
But governance have told us we can't.
No,
So
under,
someone's right.
so under their one, under policy, delegations, their restrictions are 6.1 to 6.9. And the one that I think that we come under, like as in that can advocate back in this instance, is 6.5, which is
Monitoring.
no, council and any changes the board would like made to the performance of council activities within the ward. So this is around culture and enforcement, reviews of stuff like that. I agree, the LGNZ, but is there a limitation that it's a guideline? Because we've utilised, well, I personally have utilised LGNZ before, and then they've come back on what they've said after they've been told otherwise. So
I have put the LGNZ declarations to governance and they have not replied. What's the use of governance?
So I
If
guess,
they're just not going to answer questions.
so really
sorry,
this is around answering.
what they do is they respond. And then they say, after you keep saying you haven't answered my question, please provide X, Y, Z. They go, we have responded and we're not going to, that's another thing.
Okay.
Just simple answers, all we're wanting. And this has been going on for years.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes my memory isn't as good as it could be. But we as a board sent something through to council requesting for them to look at the 8-week rule with the hope that they would put a 10 in front of the 8. And I vaguely remember having a quite robust discussion where Mr. Ridge then said, let's do a workshop. So I believe the very first workshop was birthed out of this board's recommendation to have that 8-week rule looked at. So we did one workshop. Let's not comment on how that went. Then we did another workshop, and then if my memory serves me, then we got this idea out of like central government centre, a wonderful piece of, we are looking at doing the granny flat. And at that point, that's when Tasman District Council decided, let's pause our either 108 week or our 8 week in the TRMP until we get directive from Wellington. So that's my understanding. What I grieve with that is that process in Wellington is taking a very long time. Like they had so many submissions that they pushed their time frame out. And there is still my understanding is, clear guidance of what the granny flat completely looks like and how that's going to be put into place. Meanwhile, we aren't getting our 8-week rule revisited. We may have a workshop coming here on the 30th of May. My concern is the amount of people it is hurting in my community around housing. We've done this thing outside Paper Plus. We've got some traction. We're hearing from our hurting community, and we've got no movement in the TRMP 8-week rule. We can do plan changes for every other thing, plan change 80, 81, 85, shall I keep going? But we've got no traction on this. And I want to know, as a community board and as a councillor that's genuinely concerned about my people in my community and their housing, what can we do?
So what do you propose?
Well, who's coming to our workshop on the 30th of May?
It is Mr. Drummond. So you're dead right. We proposed it. We've had 4 workshops, In those discussions though, and prior to, the RMA review and that granny flat proposal were the two things that council were sort of,
And if I can add PC Plan Change 81,
oh yeah, true.
which there was a specific piece in there, which we encourage people to submit on. We've had no submissions at all, and none from the board on that, I add. So that was council specifically wanted to ask that question through that process. So we've had no, because I checked before I came out tonight, we've had no submissions at all on that.
The what, sorry?
Plan Change 81, and there was a specific conversation there around tiny homes, what's your view, etc., etc. Minor dwellings. No, we've had no submissions at all on that. So, and I'll put that to you that was the opportunity I gave to the board the last meeting, provided a link, encourage you to submit, and there's been no submissions. But can I just add that Councillor Morrow asked me at the last meeting, has council resolved either way on that recommendation? And the answer is no, council hasn't responded to that recommendation, so it's still sat.
So it's still on the table.
So the approach has been exactly as Councillor Walker outlined. We would wait for government to determine where they're heading with granny flats.
Okay, so hold on, I'll just double check this. So there'll be no further work from council around the 8-week rule until the central government is settled.
So we as officers have not been we've not been instructed to do any further work.
Yeah.
That recommendation still sits there with council.
So that's,
It doesn't have to respond straight away, but it's still sat there.
so I guess that's where it sort of comes back as a decision.
Yeah, sorry. Two things. So actually, Plan Change 81, absolutely good point. So the board's ability to submit on that and include in your annual plan submission, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's if we don't submit, then that actually
Missed the boat.
disappointing.
Yeah.
But where it's sitting is it's not sitting with council, it's sitting in the abyss of governance. It hasn't made the council table, I believe.
Is it something that councillors can raise?
So yeah, to be fair, I think there was an email sent and two of us could raise a notice of motion. But when that advice came out, it came out wasn't inside the time frame to have to do that. So is it 10 working days or something prior that it's got to be raised? And so two of us could do that.
5 working days from what, sorry?
Yeah, so through the chair, it was advised that the board doesn't have the delegations to make that recommendation to council, shifting the onus onto each councillor to raise the motion instead. That actually came back to the February 2025 board meeting. So I've got the minutes.
Oh, and just to clarify, so for it to come back from a councillor, it needs to be within 5 working days of the board meeting.
No, prior to the meeting, so notice.
Oh, prior to the meeting. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so it still can go through that process.
So two of us could do that.
Yeah.
In terms of and I don't have an issue in being one of those councillors if you want that done. But my question is, it's probably going to get pushed back around the table for more information and a report from officers, I suspect. So
Haven't you got that from 4 workshops?
I don't know, you were the same.
Government stuff, not.
I don't know, so if you got enough from the last 4 workshops as well, so we're all in the same workshops.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't know what would happen if we did do that. I don't have an issue in doing it, but I don't have an inkling if it gets through or.
We are all missing the point here slightly. We've just been told that we didn't have delegations to do this. That was this year in relation to asking a completely separate question. We were asking for some leniency and we told we can't do that.
Yeah.
We've had a whole year before that with the workshops about the 8-week rule. Sorry, John, I've looked at the Plan Change 81. There was nothing in relation to the 8-week rule there.
No, it was, so through the chair, it was in the workshop here. It was.
No, in the Plan Change 81, the submissions.
Specific question. I think it's closed now because you missed the cutoff. So it cut off a week or so ago.
Waste of time.
Well, I gave it to you. At the
It's
last
still an
board
option.
meeting. I'm sorry, but I provided the information via the link at the last board meeting, and I encourage you at that board meeting to submit, and you didn't. Now, that doesn't mean it's the end, I'm saying that you had the opportunity. Now, if you wish to submit, I'll go back and see if we can still do that.
You're not listening, TDC are not listening to what we wanted over a year ago. All I'm asking is what has happened to the 8-week rule? And you have responded nothing, basically. Okay? And I have asked governance, right, well, how does this work? And let's go through the pathway. Nothing. Okay? It's been acknowledged. All they did was they said, no, you can't answer it. And then come up with the February 25 about asking a completely separate question. So governance have let us, and all, imagine how much work has gone in to staff, councillors' hours, when all along you're saying we can't, and yet LGNZ say something different. And when I put it to governance, when I put it to them, what do I get in return? An explanation of, no, it isn't because of X, Y, and Z? No, nothing. And all you get is we've responded. We all know what a response is, John, is where you reply to an email. Whether or not you supply the information asked for or answer the question is completely different. Response and answers are
Okay.
things.
So I don't want us to keep talking
Okay,
around
well,
the circle.
it's enough
So-
said. Okay.
Yep, you've made.
Is anything going to happen
You've made good points. So, well,
with governance?
that's up to us and our councillors. That's what councillor Alice.
Can I make a recommendation that the board make a submission to plan change 85?
81.
You have the.
81's done.
81, sorry, but even if it's closed, you can late submissions.
Okay, board member Hughes, would you be happy to help draft that?
If I thank them for allowing it. I had decided not to bother because it's just a waste of time, but if it somehow changes from 6 years, but may I suggest perhaps if council actually be transparent and release the legal opinion they got in 2020. How's that for a start? Or even John, I tell you what, you have a look yourself if they haven't shown you. Just have a look yourself for your own peace of mind and see. And
So can I, through you, Chair, I just need are you going to make a submission on, because I need to just go back and check that we can actually open it again. So do you want?
It's going to have to be driven by you. Sorry, yeah.
During these processes, we've always had the option of allowing late submissions.
Yeah, I think it's
To
more
accept them or not.
if we're going to do it or not, because someone has to put the man hours in.
I need a bit of consent to me. I don't care.
What would be a time frame? Just
Well, the sooner, I mean, you've got all the information, the sooner the better. I mean,
But this, like it is, we're working within a system, whether we like it or not, and this is an avenue for us.
Yeah. But what everyone's
Into it.
forgetting is there are clear definitions in the Building Act. There's clear definition of everything. We have a decision tree. Everything's there. Everyone's.
Maybe that's what our
all of that.
submission is,
And
member Hughes.
But-
Maybe that is what our submission is.
oh gosh, I'm banged on about this for 6 years.
I know, but
6 years. And I'm sorry, I've got nowhere. No one has got anywhere with council. And I think that's what we need to look at. We need to look at the people who are running Tasman District Council and who are causing the eviction of people.
okay. All right, so
We need to change.
thank you for the opportunity for us to feedback on it. Let's pencil that either individual board members or the board will try and get something in for 81. I'm just conscious that trying to focus on AP for now. So if another board member is happy to pick up the 81, that would be great. And let's not let that move take too long, because we do have that workshop on the end of the month, end of this month, that we need to focus on. Yes, Councillor Walker.
Sorry to dwell on this, I just want to ask one quick question. So as staff member, John Ritter has shared, it takes 2 councillors to bring
Yes.
to a council meeting, and we've got 5 days and ticking all those boxes.
Yeah.
By bringing it as a motion to council, can you share with me what the process is from then? Because I've heard rumbles from this side of the table around then the staff would have to come back for report, and can you just give me a heads up on the process?
You know, notice of motion through to council. Yeah, so you can do that 5 clear days before the meeting and write.
And which particular meeting?
Well, this would go to council.
A full council meeting as opposed to one of our operations meetings or something?
Strategy,
Oh,
strategy and policy.
Well, the last information I did was to do with the hangar housing in Motueka report, had to go to full front.
So
just giving the sense that you also and third thoughts and so I can see let's go to check me through email or him.
okay.
Just double check, because I think overturn a motion says.
Yeah, I'll just double check that.
Can we come back to you?
Thank you.
Yeah. And then there might be an appetite from councillors to put that up.
I'm a leader. You might be.
Thank you. Okay, and then that will help with that one, board member Hughes.
Sending off one right now, but it all sorted. Nice and easy.
Okay.
No need for messing around. It's-
All right, so barriers are done, but still costly exercise. Is there any updates from councillors? Anything at all you'd like to share? I know there's a dozen things you have to juggle, but anything you can share?
It's really cheap, yes, so I read the draft, board's draft AP submission
Oh,
today.
that's gonna change.
Yeah, so just interested in terms of the 8.8, I'm interested in if the board support the submission through the public forum about the moving the $1 million forward for Motueka.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I need to get some clarity because I've answered a person about library hours. So my understanding, don't answer the answer, but somebody, my understanding is that in Motueka, we haven't replaced one FTE that was outstanding for 6 months. I don't know of any other reductions to the Motueka library, but I just need to clarify that. I thought it was the one that we just hadn't replaced that had been vacant for 6 months. So, because we're getting, I don't know, we're all getting, yeah, we're getting a lot of emails. So my reply to date has been, there was a vacancy. It had been vacant for about 6 months. That position has now gone. So it will have some impact, but we've been operating for a period of time without that one position.
So service, in fact, you're saying services hours could stay the same?
I don't know how long you can maintain how you are with having a vacant position, but that's, as far as I can remember, that's the one that certainly that I supported in terms of some of the cost savings across it. Because remembering, we went into this at about 14%. And as with your budgets that are slightly over, multiply that across all the different areas. And to be fair, one of the teams in particular will push really hard into is this a should do or might do, and had a whole lot of things that are really important to ratepayers out of their budgets, which has had a deficit to date this year. And I suspect if we didn't put that money back in, we'd be more than getting rubbish bins and doggy-doo bag calls, because they're all the front-facing things that people really want.
Yeah.
And so remembering, so I get the message about the total catchment of the salary band, but a lot of the things ratepayers would like council to stop doing are the things that we are regulated to do. And the things we have some choices to do are the things that people go, we're paying all this money, we at least want some services that we can enjoy. So that's the pressure we're in. So some knowledge and some wisdom about what you're hearing Motueka about what. And I know one of them will be reduce the wage bill because that's coming everywhere, but what else? I'm not a fan of right side mowing that was reduced a little bit in the last thing. Not a fan of the rubbish bins being removed because that pride in place. And it's just, but anyway, just interested in your wider views in terms of what you're hearing, because that's the submissions that are going to come through. And that's fees, dog fees, really contentious at the moment.
Yep. Yeah.
So I guess that's the key part. It's the one time when the budgets are set and the work program's set. So the board's submission will certainly be welcome by me.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think we're hearing a lot of what you guys are hearing. Yes, Councillor Walker.
So through you, Chair. So today's conversation, so I spent a little time in the library today, which, you know, crikey, you have to have some thick skin. So we have to reduce the services of this facility. So our community invested a lot to have this amazing facility, and we had pushed back before I became a councillor as to whether we actually needed this. And this has become the heartbeat, the hub of our community. And it is not just a library whereby you walk in and take out a book. This library provides a far and wide broad of services for our community. So I got challenged today by a certain person around, so you're going to slash the services here and we're going to be open less hours and, you know, I won't quote names, but implications on contracts with employment. Yet we're going to push through funding for a pool. So we have another facility. How are we going to maintain and keep that operating, a brand new pool, when we've currently got this centre and we're slashing the services on it? I'm not too sure how as a councillor I meant to answer that question, but those are the kind of questions that we're getting asked at the minute. And do I sit here and say, yeah, absolutely, I'll sign off on an annual plan and give the wharf restoration project X amount of money and try and pull forward the swimming pool facility and shut this one down, or keep this one up and then cut what? But those are the conversations that are currently happening within our community. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that's getting asked these things. But I guess for a board, when you do your submission for that annual plan, I hope your scope is bigger than 1 or 2 items. Councillor Dowling, did you want to add anything? He's stepping out the door.
waiting for you talking about the public forum.
Okay, I'm just saying that we will come back to public forum. We'll just go through the actions list first. Our staff have been sitting here waiting, and there might be a couple of things on here and they can get going. So we'll come back to point 7 of the board report. We'll just move on to page 54. I think we did get some feedback on that Motueka master plan. What was the update? Sorry.
So the update on the master plan is that July, this will go back to council in July to agree the scope of that piece of work.
Not here.
Pardon?
Not to community board first, no.
Oh, not first, no, but I'll keep you up to date. It was really about the boundary of it. So let's have a conversation about that. We've got to clarify our thinking. So, well, let me just come back to you on that. We might come back here first and just get some feel for it.
Yeah, that would be good if it could come to the board in June, like your scope and that, and then.
Yeah, that's going to be the challenge. It won't be June. It's going to be July. That's the thing.
Okay.
Need a bit more time on it.
Yeah.
Let me come back to you on that. The master plan.
Okay. Right, I'm just going to write a note that we request to MCB. And then the Parker Street oak tree. So that has to remain on here because we have got a residents meeting they're trying to set up early next month. The indication is they don't want the trees cut down. They just want a compromise in the size. And the question was the height. Do we know how big the oak trees on Parker Street?
Can't give you the exact height.
No.
I do know that, so we've got maintenance scheduled for July,
Right.
and the tree will be taken back down to 2018.
Do we know what that percentage reduction is?
Well, to be truthful, the trees haven't actually put that much growth on since 2018. I can supply you some pictures that show the arborist working on the trees back then, and a before and after picture of when they prune the trees. So, and as soon as the leaves have dropped, if you look carefully, you'll be able to actually see where the last pruning was done. It should be obvious, but with trees of that age, they don't tend to put a huge amount of size on. And I have gone back to 2005, and I can't actually see any difference in size since 2005 on the GIS pictures. Of course, it's, pictures are back then are not as easier to read. But yeah. So the tree reduction is something that isn't fully for the benefit of the tree. But we undertake that just to try and keep that size for the residents. They'll also do deadwooding and desuckering and check climbing check for any of the faults that may have developed since the last.
Okay, that'd be great. And I guess just an action back to the C's office, which I raised last board meeting, just a response to the resident that had sent a notice. So the date was the 2nd of April. And I can give you her name after. Managed to locate it all. Okay, that'd be great, Richard. And yeah, I'll see what it might even be worth having some of the board and staff meet with the residents to just talk about those sorts of things. Okay, what's next is just a list of actions from our last meeting. So that's happening, that first one around the definition is going to be on the 30th. And the youth is going to come back at another time, the youth potential project to utilise some of the youth fund. Yeah, got some ideas brewing. Do you want to share what's happening?
What are the youth?
So right now we're planning on, well, we are doing a survey for the youth and also a day market.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Where's the day market?
Memorial Hall.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We've got the venue.
Cool.
Yeah.
So will it be selling bits and pieces people have made, or like what's the, just give me a little overview of the market? Be quite interested to hear. Or are you still bringing it together ideas?
So it's going to be run by the youth for mainly the youth. So if youth have crafted, made, or want to upcycle something that they're no longer using, so we're hoping that they'll have a few stalls around, and we're going to have some entertainment.
We have a good future in politics.
Her powder very dry, okay? So there will be some youth bands come and do some entertainment, and we originally looked at a night market, but actually getting the venue is quite challenging.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fitness things that happen out of that pool, so it's now going to be a day market in the school holidays, and Waimea Youth Council and others will be involved. So.
Oh,
You get more.
Awesome.
So
You've earned yourself the fancy bit of chocolate.
Awesome. Yes.
So
yeah,
yesterday I got an email from Chris Davies. So Chris was the community board, a youth rep on the community.
Oh, okay.
He goes, this is a bit of a random email, but I thought I'd contact to say that I will soon be working at Anderson Lloyd Dunedin as a solicitor in the resource management team. It goes to say, really appreciate my time as the youth council rep in the community board way back then. I know it was years ago, but I think it was the first time I felt able to contribute to society.
Oh,
so this was part of his email, but yeah, so Chris has got on to. We can look up.
Wow.
There you go.
Might be a good lawyer contact for you.
Nice. Okay. Look forward to hearing more. Ongoing the Heritage Wharf Restoration Project. We've already talked about that. Next year to report back to the board regarding. I'm not actually sure. Is that one where it's talking about the annual plan proposal? Is that sort of crossed off under pool now that we had, or is there something specific we're waiting to come back? So I'm assuming it's Matt, what's the finance guy? Glitchy. I can't remember either.
Oh, this is Matt's agenda item.
Do we remember the details of, is he coming back?
we scared him off for life.
Or I'm just wondering if it's something that Paul's just covered, or if, because I can't remember the particulars of. This was No, this
I can't remember what
was
we posed to.
Does anybody remember?
Around the for the REM authority for board members and the additional 40,000 for the projects.
Yeah,
Remember you
yeah.
Yes.
wondered why it was 40,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I followed up with him for it being July and coming back to this meeting, but he said that it was covered off the plan.
Yeah. Yeah, so, okay. Basically, we realised that when we moved those funds out of from one bucket to another in this financial year, we had also at that time requested taking 40K out of special projects reserves to the budget, try and get as much done before the end of the financial year. This is my memory coming in now. And then now we've realised that it's been happening anyway, so that 40K is still sitting in the proposal for the AP. Right. Okay. Cool. And yes, we did go to Maureen Pugh's office. And yeah, we're on the radar to be have a meeting scheduled with her. She's next here scheduling meetings.
Meetings and community board.
Well, we can ask her to come and have a meeting with the community board. Yeah, so Emma's going to keep us in the loop of when her new PA. So I think if there's anything else you gentlemen need to add, I think you can run away. Run away. Thanks, gentlemen. Okay, so back to point 7, public forum. Lee's gonna manage this part. So I know it's Councillor Galvin. So
No, taken.
Public forum we talking about.
Yes.
yes, so deputy's gonna run this section of the board report.
So the first item was Ray Hellier. And he was talking about the definition of freeloaders. Which is to do with the tiny homes. And the FDS financial development. FDS future development. So he was talking about the cultural concerns. We was consulted. Only 1 out of 8 had replied.
That has that was, I believe, the initial issue was
There was no
what's his name? Keith was very good at trying to get momentum there and engagement, and yeah, didn't get very much response back. But since then, so I've managed to connect him with an internal source who's been fabulous. He's connected to a lot of the iwi, so he has now managed to get through that engagement process. But I think Mr. Hillier's point's right, is it's another layer of having to
Yes.
as part of the process.
And not getting anything back. Yes. Yeah, which is
Well, it can just delay things when you've got it another
frustrating.
layer.
I unfortunately have heard similar things about people in tiny homes not providing their bit to the community, so to speak, by way of not paying rates and that sort of thing. There is a little bit of that floating around, but yeah, it's an awkward one, but certainly there's a culture issue behind there.
So the other point that Ray was
Sorry.
the other point that Ray was stressing was that TDC is committed to collaborating proactively with developers, but there doesn't seem to be much collaboration evidence of this, if I have remembered that correctly. So I don't think there was a question, to be fair. It was more a statement. Am I correct? Yeah, from my memory.
Could we clarify with Mr. Hellier? That'd be
appropriate?
Well, as far as I can see, there wasn't a question.
The only question I got out, I managed to write down was, that public use
More of a
of
statement.
council area
Yeah.
around, if a private person is maintaining a public space, as in, so mowing, for example, that's been used, that council's not doing, but the private person's doing. That's what I was sort of thought I was getting at. This is around the freeloading part. And there was a question around that.
No, I understood it to be people who live in tiny homes are freeloaders. I've sort of heard a slightly less colourful version of that. But yeah, I feel it just comes back to a cultural sort of thing there. I mean, the landowner pays rates, don't they? And it's their land. It isn't. There's not many word for it now. There's not many places for people to live now. I mean, you look at what were the cheap motorhome parks and that sort of thing. You know, they've all been sold to RSE interests, haven't they? A couple of them in town.
Maybe another motel unit shortly too.
Oh,
Really? So it's just a house. It's a house. Everything we come back, we can talk about it all, but it's a housing shortage.
absolutely. Just through the deputy, one of the calls I'd received was through a local backpacker who do house a lot of people in need, and the stress that puts on them, because it doesn't just come with a bed. Sometimes it comes with, they have no clothes with them, they're in danger, so there's a lot.
Yeah, but it's the culture behind the statement that was made to Mr. Elliott, which clearly caused concern, because I'm quite
Fair
sure
point.
he was told that.
So getting back to the public forum,
Can I just add that there was one point that Mr. Hellier raised, is that TDC, Tasman District Council, should be proactive and inclusive.
so that was towards his comment about being collaborative and being proactive with.
Not just one sector, but with everybody. Anyway, you can move on now.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a question, or unless I've missed something.
So for the notes to be tabled if there's anything specific.
Yeah. Are you happy to table your notes?
Yes, certainly. Well, I'm surprised that you've misunderstood what I said.
I think we all picked little bits and pieces out. We didn't quite capture the whole lesson.
You are.
Thank you.
What, newspaper as well?
Okay.
Well, newspaper
The
as well. and I
newspaper
suppose
article 16.
What was that, Ray?
Is that the article?
You want the newspaper that I quoted from as well?
That's the article.
No?
Oh, if you're prepared to, we'll screenshot it, right?
So
Yeah.
I'll make sure you do that.
I haven't seen
did anybody else misunderstand him? Maybe, or is it just me?
it. I think, well, I'd only captured those little bits that I said.
Next month.
Okay. That's all right. Moving on to Mr. I can't even say that last name.
So the next public speaker was Kevin Fury, and again, there wasn't a question. It was basically talking about TDC doesn't seem to manage their budget. They're trying hard to reduce costs. It's getting out of control. And then we're talking about the library reducing their hours. It's threatening the library. He was commenting about the library needing longer hours and rather than decreasing the hours. And he made the point about the revenue that was gained from the solar power on the But again, I don't think there was a question, unless I've missed something. And the last speaker was Ross Leverage from the community swimming pool, which you've got his notes that he tabled.
Which one were you speaking to?
That was about Kieran Ferry's speech, but there was no question. It just says it was only going to be a comment of what he said.
Yeah.
You happy for that?
Yeah.
Alrighty, so the fact of the matter is, okay, everybody's wound up about an 8.8% rate rise. I don't blame them either. But reality is that if we'd put everything in the plan that we did in the long-term plan for this year, the rate rise would have been 15%. That was what was tabled to us by staff with all the inflationary figures that had come through. So we then instructed staff that 15% was unacceptable. Go away, cut the cloth, come back. Every council room was asked what they would accept, and everybody said they wanted the rates rise to be below 10%. And that's what we've ended up with at 8.8. Unfortunately, there are things that people don't like. But there is a book. If you want to pick it up and have a read through it, gives it all pretty well abbreviated and there. And then on the back page, there is a thing that you fill in or do it online and get it to the council by next Sunday. Or
This
following
Sunday.
Sunday.
This Sunday.
25th, yeah, this Sunday coming.
Yep.
And we will then sit round, and if we decide to say, all right, yeah, everybody wants this, it might be a 9% rate rise. It's as simple as that. Nothing comes free. Everything comes at a cost. There's 13 of us sitting around the table. We'll make the decision. Now, unfortunately, some people that live in certain areas will pay a lot more. Like where I live, I'm not connected to and Ray's not either, not connected to sewer. We supply our own water, look after our own storm water. So we're exempt from that. We don't pay any of that, and that's actually factored into the 8.8%. So, but there are others that get more. Be up there. I get recycling. I think you get recycling. There's a lot of people that don't get recycling, so they won't get any of those fees.
But you got a task, right? I haven't.
Yeah.
But anyway, so as I say, it's very easy to criticise and pick on one thing. But when you look at what we've cut, we're looking at cutting, or staff have advised us to cut right the way through. We've already rolled back over on the rubbish bins and doggy do bags. There's dog fees and all that sort of stuff we've got to bring into it. There's a big equation to happen yet. And I'd say that we're intending on spending half a day. I guarantee we spend longer than half a day on the annual plan decision, possibly a day and a half. It's going to be quite a lot of discussion on a lot of things. Because people are hurting, we know that. But there's also a lot of people out there that are going, you can't do that, you can't cut that. So we've got to find the balance of where everything's going to be good for some, bad for others, but we've got to cut the balance.
And it's unfortunate that councillors of this term are in that position. And I guess a lot of the questions from community, coming back myself included, is how did we get to this place? Yes, we've got some external factors that we have to take into consideration that are outside of our control, but there are other things that are within, and I know Councillor Walker's been trying to drum that through today's meeting, and that's where I think the unease is in community. Yeah.
You'll please some, you won't please others. I sat beside a couple on Saturday night at a wedding that came up from Selwyn District Council, and we're busy chatting there, and they said, oh, what's your occupation? I said, I don't really want to tell you. But anyway, I did. Oh, how's your rate rise going this year? I said, oh, well, it's not too good, 8.8%. What are you not worried about? We've just been told ours is going to be 14, if not more. That's Selwyn District Council.
Yeah.
Then I read in the paper somewhere that Tauranga are getting really hammered because they're going for 22%. I think we've actually done pretty bloody good to cut the cloth down to 8.8. There's going to be, as I say, there's got to be a lot of people not happy. There's going to be a lot of other people that are going to be happy. So, I don't know. But anyway.
I think the part that Councillor Dowling left out of his lovely prepared speech is that this is a community consultation document. So it only becomes a consultation document if our community actually gives us some feedback on it, because my role as a councillor is to take that feedback, look at all your submissions, and then as my voice of one of 13, I speak on behalf of what my community has said as to whether 8.8 is realistic or if it's not. And if the level of service doesn't meet what you want, then that's a whole different conversation. But we can't have that. I can't do that on my own. My community needs to tell me what they like, don't like, and give us some clear guidance.
The last page.
It needs to be remembered, needs to be remembered that Tasman, or especially Motueka, it's not a high earning town.
No,
And
don't worry, mate, we
you've
get
got a lot of retired people coming to the region, but not a lot of high paid workers. That's a sad.
This came here 14 years ago, it was called the Sunshine City, it paid sunshine wages. You came here for the sunshine, but you got paid nothing.
Still do.
$10 town. Anyway.
So, you know, better to say, but that's my spiel on, you know, saying that we're reducing ours here and it should be increased. Well, actually, no problem at all. But it won't be an 8.8% rate rise. We've either got to cut the cloth somewhere else to keep it or do something.
Any other input from the board?
Can we just in on the real bad spot?
Huh?
Is if you have a look at the properties that are highlighted in that document, actually Mott's sitting at about 10.something%.
Yep.
If you've got services.
Yep.
Still.
Yeah.
So that's to Barry's point, is that
Water's in or out.
our township is actually on a higher than the 8.8.
Yeah. Yes, it's going to be a challenging time for you guys.
We'll
And
start paying for all the extra additional work that the government water bodies want us to do with our water quality, and I think the next year one is going to be an interesting rate rise in too. Even though we'll have local water done well and on the track, it's still going to cost for those who are connected to a water supply.
well, it may impact you further than that. Yep.
I'd just like to say one thing before we finish. There was a couple of people that were here when I did the drop-in session for the special projects. And it was advertised for 11:30 to 12:30, but a couple of people turned up at 11 o'clock and then said that I didn't show up. So it was advertised for 11:30. I actually got here at 11:15. So I'd just like everyone to know that I did show up on time, early.
No, I did attend one of those for a little bit.
Yes, just
No,
yeah. So you can put people straight if they say I didn't show up.
Just reflecting on the consultation part that you pointed out, councillor. Okay, so I'll move the report. Can I please have a seconder? Oh, actually, we've got one amendment, sorry, two. Because we're still, still working on the annual plan submission, which the one that I sent you guys, I have to tweak now that we've got some more numbers coming. So point 2, just delegating authority for me to complete that and get that back out to you guys before Sunday, before we submit it. And yes, and then we will approve as a board on the next board meeting. So all those, and so I'll move. Can I have a seconder, please? Board member Hughes. All in favour, please say aye. Anyone again? Okay, so that's carried. Okay, so I think that's us, is it? I will just wrap up. I will just wrap up with karakia, but I do want to thank everybody for your input. And we are halfway through the year next month. So we want to try and achieve as much as possible. Yeah, before September, before October. Okay, kua motu a mātou mahi mo tēnei wā. Mana ki tia mai mātou katoa o mātou hoa o mātou whānau ai o ki te aorangi. So our work is finished for the moment. Blessing upon us all, our friends, our families, and peace to the universe. Thank you, everybody. Have a